Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm the Nerdy Cat Mom, and today I'm bringing you a video of Oregon's comic and anime conventions in 2020. So if you're an Oregon nerd or you just want to visit our wonderfully wet and green state, keep on watching. Okay, so by the time this video gets posted, there will have already been 3 conventions in Oregon. The first being Fandom PDX. They were in Portland at the Sheraton Hotel from January 4th through the 5th. I heard it was well received. This particular con had gone through some name changes and management changes, but from what I've heard, people enjoyed it this year. So one that I had on my list, but I'm not sure happened or not, was the Villains and Heroes convention that was supposed to happen on the 6th. This was one that when I filmed my UConn got canceled video, one of the reasons that UConn said that they were canceling was number one because of the venue, but also because there were 2 Comic-Cons kind of competing in that same time period along with them, and they had mentioned Heroes and Villains, but we had thought that'd been canceled, and so I kept looking online, and Google for some reason had said it was going to happen in January. So it's on my list, but I haven't heard that it happened or not, so I'm just going to include it just in case one of you went and can share it down in the comments, because I'd love to know if it even happened. And the third con that will have already happened by the time this video is posted was Wizard World Portland. That is hard to say. Wizarding World Convention, I've heard really good things about it. I just couldn't go this year. I have a couple friends who went and their pictures on Facebook were amazing. So this one was on January 24th and 25th at the Oregon Convention Center. I've heard really good things about this con. I just haven't had a chance to go. Okay, and the first convention in February is actually in Salem and is Miyako-Con. And it is the first anime convention that I know that happens in 2020. It's in Salem and it's at the Quality Suites in Kaiser. It has a vast array of things like viewing rooms and panels and vendors, and is specifically catered to anime. This is the only anime convention that I know of in Oregon that's not in Portland or Medford, which is really interesting because the Willamette Valley just in general, like Eugene, Salem, doesn't really have a lot. It's either Portland, which is up north, is our biggest city in this state, or Medford, which is pretty south, right? It's not that far from California, so I think that, you know, to have an anime convention in the middle of the state is actually really cool. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Next up is Game Storm, which is March 26th through the 29th. It's in Portland at the Jansen Beach Red Lion Hotel. So this con is all about games. Board games, video games, trading card games. It has vendors, artists, demo areas. You can demo new games. You can play games that everybody loves. It's just all about games. And I heard about this when I was doing research for my blog, link in the description below. And I thought, wow, this is really kind of interesting. I'd never heard of it before, but evidently it kind of has a big following in the Portland area, so awesome. And one con that I actually mentioned in last year's video and last year's blog post is Medford Comic-Con, which this year will be happening April 25th through the 26th at the Medford Library and at the Rogue Community College campus. So it's kind of like spread out in Medford. This is the first Comic-Con in Medford that happens this year. It's very kind of local. There are vendors and cosplay people. There are vendors, people in cosplay, and a whole bunch of fun family-friendly events. If you're into that, go check them out. And the next convention is also in Medford. It is Meadowlark Comic-Con, and this one is quite a bit bigger than the Medford Comic-Con. This one is happening May 9th at the Ramada Inn in Medford. This particular con, especially in Southern Oregon, has kind of a bigger following. One of my author friends was in their vendor / artist alley space last year and it went pretty well. This particular event has cosplay contests, workshop panels, meet and greets, a vendor hall, and free video game play, which sounds super fun. And the next con is one that was suggested to me in the comments of one of my other videos, which is Furlandia, which happens Memorial Day weekend, which will be May 23rd through 24th. This event I don't know a whole lot about because I'm not a part of that community. So as far as I can tell, it is Portland's main fur con or furry event. But it has some fun games like dance competition, games, karaoke, and a variety show. You can come in costume or not. It's sure to be kind of a fun event if you're into that. The next con, and is one that's new to me and one that's sort of new in general, is the Salem Comic-Con, which will happen at the Oregon State Fair this year in Salem from June 6th through the 7th. I found this particular Comic-Con on Facebook, and it looks like this con is sort of built on the back of a different con that used to happen in Salem that for some reason stopped happening a couple of years ago. So this one may or may not be related to that, but this one's at the Oregon State Fair. There's not a lot of information on the website about it, but it's at the state fair, so I bet that it's kind of in an event center, and there'll probably be vendors, you know, cosplay, just those things at the fairgrounds during the fair. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. If any of you know more about that con, go ahead and leave a comment down below. The next con is Geekcraft Expo, which will be happening at the Oregon Convention Center June 20th through June 21st. I really wanted to go to this one last year, but by the time I had learned about it, there was just no way. I had booked up a couple other concert events and I just couldn't go. But this one is a craft expo, but all of the crafts and the crafters are nerd based. So there was some pictures that I found of like Doctor Who and Harry Potter and like Pokemon and Cthulhu and all of these like different crafts, but based around these nerd events. Nerd fandoms. Yeah, nerd fandoms. Based around these nerd fandoms. And I really wanted to go, but I couldn't go last year. So this one I'm hoping to get to. All right, and another Medford event. There's a lot of events in Medford, surprisingly, is ani-medford. And this year it's happening also at Ramada Inn in Medford on August 15th. And this is Southern Oregon's anime convention. Last year they had a couple great meet and greets. They have, of course, cosplay and a vendor hall. They also have workshops and panels. It's really interesting that Medford, of all places in Oregon, which is pretty small, has 3 conventions that happen throughout the year. I just find it really interesting. And now back up to the northern end of the state for Portland Gaming Expo. This happens from August 14th through the 16th at the Oregon Convention Center. This is not your normal Comic-Con and anime convention. I included this because a lot of nerds, like myself, who like video games, like a lot of the older ones better. So this particular gaming expo is all about those nostalgic older games. Atari, Nintendo. You know, I envision Duck Hunt, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot more video games there. But this sounds like an amazing event if you really, really like those vintage sort of nostalgic 80s and 90s games. Definitely check it out. Okay, and the one that we all know about, the one we all wait for till the end of the year, is Rose City Comic Con, of course, happening in Portland at the Oregon Convention Center. This year it's going to be September 11th through the 13th. This is Oregon's biggest convention. There's everything. They basically take over the Oregon Convention Center. They have meet and greets, they have a vendor hall, artist alley, workshops, cosplay, panels, you name it, they have it. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, they had Will Wheaton, Tim Curry. Lots of big names come to this event in Oregon. I think this is the only event that has names this large. Some of the Medford events have meet and greets, but they're from smaller authors, and this particular con is the one that you think of when you think of an Oregon Comic-Con. It is big, it has big names, it's pretty expensive, but it's Portland. So if you want that big convention experience in Oregon, this is the con for you. And it's kind of weird. Really. The next convention is kind of an odd one, and it's not really a convention in the way that we think of Comic-Cons or anime conventions are. This is the Portland Odysseys and Curiosities Expo, and it happens on August 10th at the Oregon Convention Center. Now, this particular event is kind of strange. It basically is an event dedicated to showing all of the oddities and curiosities that kind of interest a lot of people that are maybe sort of the outside fringes. Taxidermy, weird antiques, original art, crafted things, but a lot of what I saw on their website was this sort of dark horror occulty thing. And it really interests me. Number one, I love horror, but it also includes this sort of like dark, brooding. The dark arts is the wrong word. I mean, that's a Harry Potter term, but on their website they have some good pictures of the type of stuff that they have, and it's just kind of weird, dark antiques and taxidermy and all this stuff that interests me, but not in the general sort of like Comic-Con convention anime sort of way. So I thought I'd mention it because if I'm curious about it, I bet some of you would be curious too. Next is Kumoricon. This is the largest anime convention in Oregon, and this year it will happen at the Oregon Convention Center from November 6th through the 8th. Kumoricon is big. It's kind of like Rose City Comic Con if it were just anime. So they have guests, they have meet and greets, vendors, workshops, panels, all of that. Kumoricon is pretty big. This anime convention happens at the Oregon Convention Center. It's huge. I saw some really cool pictures from last year's Kumoricon that I was so sad I couldn't go to because I was at Geek Girl Con with my cousin. But they had this like ghost cat maid cafe, which I've seen YouTube videos on those, and they look so interesting. Just the anime stuff in general looks really cool at Kumoricon, and they have screening of new music videos, which it just sounds so cool. Like anime music videos in general, I love, but the idea of seeing new ones, it's great. And the last con that I have dates for is Oricon, which will be November 13th through the 15th at the Jansen Beach Red Lion. This is Oregon's longest running fan convention. I think this goes on year 42. They're more geared to comics, reading, science and science fiction, and those sort of topics. They're much more or less mainstream than the normal Comic-Con conventions, but it looks really interesting. And their prices are pretty reasonable, and they do draw some nice guests, like authors, film producers. I think they had some last year, and I kind of want to go this year because it is Oregon's longest running fan convention. I kind of want to see what it's about because I didn't know about it until my cousin mentioned it on my last video, and I didn't even know it existed. So now for a list of cons that I don't have dates for yet. So the first one is Portland Indie Con. So they haven't announced the 2020 dates yet, but last year this was at the Doubletree by Hilton. It's really different from normal comic conventions. The comics have to be by independent artists. The video games have to be by independent artists. All of it has to be independent. None of it can be based on other things. It has to be your work, your ideas, all of that. The other one that I really hope comes back, fingers crossed, is UConn. There are no 2020 dates yet, but according to the creator of the con, they will happen this year. I guess it just depends on where they find a location, because according to Facebook, they are not going back to the Lane Event Center. So Not sure when that'll happen, but fingers crossed that we got our con back. So another con that doesn't have dates, but I actually found out about when researching this, is the Indie Game Con, which actually is in Eugene. So last year it was around November, December, and it was at the Lane Event Center, and it was basically new game developers, independent games. You could come and try new games and demo them and kind of give feedback. And I was really interested in going, but I think I had a concert or I was out of town that weekend. So this con and UCon are, as far as I know, the only conventions that happen in Eugene. So I really hope that they happen this year, and I will let you guys know if I find dates for them. Last on my list is Geek The Halls, which happens in Portland, and it's usually a 2-day event. I don't have dates for 2020 yet, but I think I talked about this in one of my last videos about what Oregon cons were left in 2019, and this one is basically a holiday bazaar that is really geared toward nerdy and geeky items and vendors. So hopefully I get dates for that this year soon. Cross your fingers. So those are the cons that are happening in Oregon in 2020. It's a lot bigger list than last year, mostly because I actually found more this year. Again, if you know of a con in Oregon that I didn't mention, please let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to add it to my blog post. It's really hard to find cons in Oregon, let alone a list of what cons happen in Oregon. If you Google Oregon Comic Cons or Oregon Anime Cons, you're not going to get an exhaustive list. If you want that list, you can click in the description below for my blog post, because all of the cons that I have mentioned in this video are on that blog post and have a little bit more information about them, and they have links to each con's website. So go and visit that if you're looking to research into a specific con that you want to go to this year. All right. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more geeky videos, then hit that subscribe button. All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.